I finally got around to playing the Dead Space series, and I gotta say, I don't know what took me so long. As one of the last few AAA survival horror series, I should have supported it immediately, but I have a genuine phobia about outer space, so I put it off. But not anymore. I put on my big boy panties and I bum rushed through all 3 games in about a week and a half. While there are definitely some things I didn't like about Dead Space, these asteroids can seriously go fuck themselves, and the worst things in gaming, quick time events, are present and accounted for, if not as obnoxiously done as some other games, there were certainly some things that I thoroughly enjoyed. This is the Pants List. Top 5 best things about Dead Space. Spoilers. Number 5. Zero-G is awesome! One of the benefits of setting a game in space is the opportunity to play with movement in zero gravity, and Visceral Games, now known as EA Redwood Shores, but I will continue calling them Visceral because it's a far more awesome name, grabbed that opportunity and made it their bitch. I was thoroughly entertained by the Zero-G sections in all 3 games. It's hard to pick a favorite, but if I did, it would probably be the extravehicular sections in Dead Space 3. Just thrusting around space with that majestic music. I love the peaceful feeling of it. For the most part. That's not to say that the other games don't have their moments. For me, the Zero-G boss fight versus the Leviathan in the first game was a highlight, and possibly my favorite boss fight in the series. And I loved how some of the Zero-G sections in the first game turned the environment itself into a puzzle. But whether you're jumping from panel to panel or blissfully flying through space, Zero-G in Dead Space is a blast. Number 4. No heads-up display! In most games, there's information all over the screen. Health bars, ammo counters, waypoint indicators, radar, inventory, a compass. There's so much shit in HUDs nowadays, I'm kind of surprised nobody's tried to squeeze in an advertisement for Mountain Dew. Having said that, the player does need access to a lot of information, and how fast they can get that information can mean the difference between fun and frustration. HUDs are how players get that information, but persistent on-screen elements can break your immersion, or worse, burn in the image on your high-def TV. Visceral Games gets around that by incorporating the game's HUD directly into Isaac's suit. The spine shows his remaining health or oxygen, and ammo counters appear as holograms when guns are drawn. If you ever get lost or aren't sure where to go, you can get directions projected on the floor. It's a genius touch that makes the games just that much more immersive. In fact... Number 3. Never takes you out of the game world! All 3 games seem to have been built with this credo in mind. Never take the player out of the game world. The HUD serves in this capacity, sure, but so does just about everything else. The store could have popped up a different screen, but no, it projects a hologram and the camera zooms in. Going into your inventory or objectives list could have popped up on a different screen, but again, Isaac's suit projects a hologram and the camera zooms in. Cutscenes don't break up the game either. They use one persistent camera that flows from its position at Isaac's shoulder at the beginning of the cutscene, moves around as needed, and then returns to Isaac's shoulder at the end. The second and third games don't even have breaks between chapters, just a short notification that the chapter has changed. Most of the game's loading times are disguised as stubborn doors or elevator travel. It all serves to keep you invested. There is no escape from the game world's horrors. Well, unless you press the pause button. And speaking of horrors, number 2. Thoroughly disturbing shit! The first game was unquestionably the scariest, and one of the reasons was the disturbing nature of the things you would see. Pretty much everyone on the ship has been butchered in horrific ways, and the ones who survived have been driven completely insane. The few survivors you find will be doing unnerving things to themselves or other survivors. The second game is not as scary, but I found it even more disturbing. Now that the game takes place on a space station where families live, and there are elementary schools, holy shit! Not to mention, the gore factor is through the roof. There are some nasty deaths on display, not just other people. Isaac himself can get killed in many, many thoroughly gruesome ways. They toned down the gore and the disturbing stuff for Dead Space 3, most likely to make the series accessible to a wider audience, but in doing so they thoroughly neutered it. But the first two games are chock full of creepy and disturbing things to see. Parts of these games were hard for me to watch, but they most definitely added to the fear. But it's not the scariest thing about the games. Number 1. Sound design! The first game, in particular, is a masterclass on how to design sound for a horror game. It is flawless. The music is minimal, and only serves to amplify jump scares in combat. For the most part, all you hear aboard the Ishimura is the ship itself. Or perhaps that's something stalking you. How about exploring sections with no air? Or better yet, on the outside of the ship?
Entering zero gravity.
All the sound design for the first game serves to create a sense of atmosphere that's simply unparalleled in this generation of games. The second game is brilliant as well, with some standout moments, but it never quite captures the perfection of the first game. The same goes for Dead Space 3, though that game has my favorite soundtrack of the series. Still, whoever designed the sound for the Dead Space games deserves a raise, and possibly a medal, or a pony.